Good afternoon, Peabody Catholic. I am Father Kevin.
And I'm Deacon Dennis.
And this is
The Unbelievable Show.
So last episode, we talked to you about the reopening of our parish community this coming weekend at Pentecost. And we read to you Father John's 10 COVID commandments. The last one, number 10, being...
Thou shalt be happy.
Happy. So we want to kind of use this episode, the following episode, to talk about reasons that we're joyful, reasons that we're happy.
Like Father Kevin said in the last episode, we as a Catholic family, we as a Catholic community, we're an Easter people. And so we always have a reason for joy, even in the midst of suffering.
Preach it.
There's always a reason for joy. Sometimes it's a little harder to find. But that's why we want to have the opportunity to speak to you about how people have found joy during this time of pandemic, during this time of physical distancing.
And you know, online, we're onliners, we're millennials, so we are on our devices a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, too much. Another episode. However, one thing that I've noticed is there's like a big split between people who just continuously post negative things about what's going on right now with the pandemic and with coronavirus and the plandemic versus this versus that. You know, we're not getting political here. And then the people on another side that, you know, we have people like, oh my gosh, I almost said Michael Scott.
John Krasinski.
Thank you. Thank you. John Krasinski's, you know, starting, you know, something good. Tell me something good. You know, that song. Tell me something. Can I sing that? Is it copyright?
It's going to be well...
You know the song. I didn't officially sing it, so I didn't infringe on any copyright things.
We don't want to get sued.
But we have this dichotomy of people always posting negative things and then, you know, trying to showcase the good. And so today, Deacon Dennis and I want to talk about the good, the happy, joyful things that we've noticed coming out of this time period. One thing that I was telling Deacon Dennis before we started rolling today, this semester I'm teaching at Bishop Fenwick, as I have been all year. And second semester for the juniors, we do Catholic social teaching. And so I was able to get through 2 of the 7 principles of Catholic social teaching before we had to switch to an online platform. So the second principle of Catholic social teaching is our call to family and community participation. The Church realizes that we are inherently social beings, that we inherently have this desire to be social. We're social creatures. And that social cell, that social unit starts within the family. But it doesn't stop within the family.
As Father Kevin said, we are social creatures. We weren't made to be by ourselves. We're made to be in community with other people, right? We're not going to be happy just by being by ourselves. We're only going to be most fulfilled and most happy if we're with other people. And that may look different for different people, especially if we're talking about introvert, extrovert, and things like that.
Extrovert.
I'm an introvert. But we're called to be social in different ways. And those deep desires of our heart are not going to be fulfilled if we're just isolated by ourselves.
You know, and in these times, we've seen people be pretty creative in order to be with each other. We've seen, you know, from Zoom. You see, shout out to Zoom. I use Zoom in my class.
Zoom has been used everywhere. I should have bought stock in this before
I should have too, but it's too late now. Anyway, so, you know, Zoom, that's what I'm using to stay connected with my class at Fenwick. I've used it with family to have, you know, a face-to-face meeting with my parents, my siblings, my nieces, and my brother and sister-in-law. We've used it for parties, to congratulate people who are getting their master's degree or graduating. And
we've even used it to pray night prayer with Cardinal Sean on Holy Thursday evening.
Yeah, so see, you know, these innovative ways of being with each other. Another thing, one that brought a lot of joy to me, even though it wasn't for me, was on Saturday, May 16th. As you know, that would have been the day that Deacon Dennis and Deacon Dan were ordained priests. And so earlier that week, we had people start spreading the word, you know, word of mouth, that we would gather in the front parking lot Father Kevin would somehow get Deacon Dan and Deacon Dennis outside, and there would be a little parade.
Mind you, this was all kept secret from myself and from Deacon Dan, so we had no idea what was going on.
Exactly. I told them we'd go out just quickly, the three of us. I wanted to do something special for them, to take their mind off of the fact that it wasn't their ordination day. And then we found out Deacon Dennis actually had a baptism that I didn't know about, and I was like, well, how am I going to do this? But it just was so beautiful, and to see the amount of people that came out to drive around the parking lot, to beep their horns. They had signs. A few people gave Deacon Dan and Deacon Dennis cards. And then we took those signs and hung them up in our formal dining room where we have dinner most nights, but all together as a community of the full rectory on Friday and Saturday. So we had those signs all around them on Saturday night, showing them just how much they're loved. And that brought such a smile to me, to see that the faithful, the people of God, love their priests and future priests so much, and give them such care and tenderness.
Exactly. And as much as it brought a smile to your face, Father Kevin, it was so moving for me. It was so touching for me to have been loved in such a real way. And I was commenting to Father Kevin earlier that week that I've been just surprised and very pleased with the creativity that people have shown with all these drive-by birthday greetings or these drive-by congratulations that people have done throughout Peabody, Salem, and throughout the whole country, that people have been doing these drive-by festivities, parades, just to go by people's houses, honk their horns, just to show their love and appreciation for people. And little did I know that Saturday, May 16th, that happened to me, and that happened to Deacon Dan. That so many people, so many of you from our parish community came out to show your love for us and to show your appreciation. And although I haven't had a chance to thank each of you individually, I want to thank you at least here from the bottom of my heart. Just thank you so much for all the love and support that you've shown me, all the prayers that you continue to provide. It means so much to me to know that I'm loved by my parish community. It brought me to tears that day, honestly, just thinking about how good you all are and how amazing it is to be part of this parish family, to be loved so much, and to see that in action, just with the number of people that came through honking their horns and just showing how much that they care.
Exactly. Another thing that we've benefited from here in the house, we're speaking of the generosity and love of our parishioners, is the people who are taking such good care of us day in and day out. We have with our Acts community a core group of people who have been so generous to provide dinner for us each night by either cooking or providing us with a meal. And it's really helped to foster, I think, in this house, a spirit of fraternity and a spirit of community, knowing that every day we're going to gather around our kitchen table or our dining room table and have a nice home-cooked meal, and then just have some time to talk together as priests and as future priests.
Exactly, which is not something that we typically get to experience on such a regular basis.
Right.
Just because of the life of a diocesan priest, a lot of times everyone is just running around on their own schedule, and it's hard to find a time for us all to get together. But the fact that we've been able to do so with such regularity has been just such a blessing, to be able to share that fraternity with each other. And I know that that's not something that only we're experiencing, but a lot of you as well. Just with the quarantine, a lot of families are spending a lot more time together, which is given the opportunity to have a meal together, which may not be the case normally, or to just spend time, parents with their children with their siblings or with their parents, grandparents, what have you. We're all spending a lot more time with each other, more than we expected to have during this pandemic. And It's been such a beautiful thing seeing the way families have come together and been able to share a lot of time with each other, getting to know each other in a different way.
Exactly. And I mean, Pope John Paul II used to talk a lot about how the family is really the domestic church. So around the time of Easter, maybe Holy Week-ish, there was a picture going around the internet. I saw it in several different languages on Instagram, but it was a picture of the devil and of God looking down on the world. And the devil said, I've taken them away from church. I've closed all your churches because of this pandemic. And God says, you may have closed all the churches, but I opened one in every home. And that's really the spirit of what's going on here. That in this time, families are growing closer. We hope a lot more than we've heard from, but we've heard from several families as to how they're growing closer. And we just hope that that's more widespread than what we've been told.
Exactly. And not only growing closer to each other, but possibly with their neighbors as well, or with extended family members, or even people that they may not be in contact with normally. Knowing the situation, it's really been so good to see how many people that people I know have been reaching out to. People that they may not have otherwise reached out to. We all know we're in the same situation. And so I've seen a number of times where someone has reached out to an old friend or reached out to an acquaintance that they haven't talked to in a while just to check in, just to see how they're doing. And that's one thing I've really loved about how people have adapted to this situation is adapting and learning and in showing how to love in different ways and being creative in figuring out new ways to love people.
Well, speaking of love, one thing that I've found very, very encouraging and has kind of brought like a big grin to my face, a big smile to my face, is part of priests' responsibilities is marriage preparation. And so I have several couples that I've been working with to prepare them for marriage. And who knew, obviously, at the start of our marriage prep, that we would even be talking about wearing masks at your wedding and limiting the number of guests. Thankfully, I had no weddings scheduled from December through June. But, in talking with a majority of my couples that are preparing for marriage, the amount that have said, like, no, we want to keep the date no matter what. Like, we want to be married in the church. We want to be married. We don't care if it's just you, me, her, and our best man and our maid of honor. We want to get married in the church. And that is so beautiful because the couple recognizes the grace of the sacrament of marriage and the power of living the sacramental life. And for me as a young priest, being told in seminary that marriages are down and people would rather get married on the beach or at City Hall versus in the church, and this, to hear that is a great sign of hope for me.
Exactly. And for me too, just seeing how people have been adapting to this and knowing what's important, what's most important. It's not necessarily about the big celebration. It's not necessarily about all these extra things that may be part of a big wedding ceremony or all the celebrations around a wedding. But what's most important is the actual marriage, the actual sacrament of matrimony that is happening. And one thing, a lot of these stories that we've been hearing, a lot of what we've been seeing with our parish family, with friends that we talk to, is how when we're stripped from all the things that we're used to, when a lot of these things are taken away, we've been able to see what's most essential and have been able to cherish just what is the most important in our lives. And this is maybe a call for us to live more simply. And possibly could be that wake-up call to not worry about a lot of those extra things that aren't actually important and to focus just on what is actually important. So maybe this is a call to greater simplicity of life. That's never a bad thing. And that's something that I'm still praying with and trying to see how I can implement that in my own life.
Exactly. So those are just a few things that have been very edifying to us as your priest, your deacon, as your brothers in Christ that we've seen in this time. One thing that I want to leave you with is a story. I love stories. So on June 5th, 2003, a strapping young man, 17 years old, was sitting at home and he was checking online, instant messenger, every few minutes, waiting for an update. And it was a beautiful day, beautiful June day, pretty sunny. It had been very rainy though. And then he got the news that he had been dreading, that his high school graduation had been forced inside because of the threat of thunderstorms that night. I'm talking about myself. And it was very, sad, because everybody went from possibly having as many people as you want in the high school football field to now we're going to be inside in the auditorium. We're only allowed 3 tickets now. Okay, I have my mom, my dad, I have a brother and a sister. So which one do I choose? And so it became, in the blink of an eye, a very tough situation for me. What is this going to be like? I've always looked forward to graduating outside. And then the mailman came. Now, how is that going to be a good thing? Well, I went out to the mailbox and I had a letter. I had a letter from the American Red Cross. I had given blood a few weeks earlier. It was my first time donating blood, and they sent me my first ever donor card. And so I was 17. I did not know what blood type I was. And I opened up the letter, and you know what blood type I was?
What blood type were you?
B positive. And right there I said, God is trying to tell me something. God is trying to say, Kevin, be positive. You're graduating. And it's not what you planned. It's not what you thought was going to happen. But it's okay. Be positive. And so that's what I want to leave you with today is in the midst of whatever's going on, try to be positive. Because as St. Paul says, God makes all things work for the good of those who love him. So be positive.